On today's episode, as we dive fin too deep, what should the Miami Dolphins do if they are eliminated this weekend? Because they don't have to lose to be eliminated. The Miami Dolphins decided against activating Bradley Chubb. Is his time in Miami officially over? And yeah, we're already looking ahead. If you were to look ahead and the Miami Dolphins lose this weekend, who would be your nucleus of players heading forward into the offseason? Smash that like button, subscribe if you're new, and let's get into this.
Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jaylen has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field down the near side, that open. Touchdown! The run from Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it over the touchdown. He's in. Touchdown!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
You're listening to Fin Too Deep.
Tua back to throw. Blitz coming and get to him. No, he takes off running. And he's in. Touchdown, Miami.
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jaylen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason and Neal.
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We are back here for another one. Welcome everyone in. I hope everyone had a fantastic Christmas, Hanukkah. I don't know if the 8 nights over, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. I hope it was, hey, if you don't celebrate anything, I hope your microwave dinner was out of this world. All right. So shout out to everyone in the chat already pulling up. Let's get into it. Neal, the Dolphins, they're coming off a win over it's still a good team, but a depleted San Francisco 49ers when you look at the run game alone. No Trent Williams as well. It was close at times, but the Miami Dolphins got it figured out, especially with the Achane game-sealing touchdown run as Devon Achane became the first 100-yard plus rusher for the Miami Dolphins this season. How you feeling coming off the holidays and that win against San Francisco? Wasn't it weird yesterday being a Christmas day and we didn't have a game considering how the last few years have gone?
Yeah, for sure, man. And I'll say it, I was actually impressed with the 49ers win. I get they didn't have Trent Williams or Christian McCaffrey, but they did have Fred Warner. They did have Nick Bosa. They did have Deebo Samuel. They did have Brock Purdy. I mean, they had George Kittle. I'd argue their roster is still as good as ours, to be honest, with what they had out there. We're dealing with injuries as well. The Dolphins seemed to be in control for a majority of that game, and really seemed like they were the better football team. And I think actually Mike McDaniel actually showed some good counters from the last time he played Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. So, and how could you not be excited about the Devon Achane performance again or the Chop Robinson performance again? Because every week now we're talking about Chop Robinson making more and more plays. He's, tied for the rookie league in sacks. I think the next 2 games he could get to a game. Let's just be what it is. And with 10 on the season, I mean, he is, I think, well far advanced from what maybe anyone saw, from a football talent. And when he gets the mental reps to catch up to his physical gifts, it's going to be amazing. He's the best player on the defense right now. Him and Zach Sealer kind of take week to week.
Yeah.
But Chop Robinson, and I texted you when this happened, that motor, you don't teach that. That sack, where he lost the sack but then came back, his ability to get off the ground and get to the quarterback that quickly is insane. Like he is twitchy as hell. Chop is a foundational type of player where, you get excited to think of what could be with him and Jalen Phillips in the future. Because that is, I think, the best tandem we will have when you think about age and talent. Because we're going to talk about him a little bit, but we know now Bradley Chubb's done for the season, so I think it's great to see Chop get the opportunity. But it's a good win against a good 49ers team that kind of like us, the season didn't go their way. They were definitely still playing for something, and I think the Dolphins getting that W, and I'm on record like I don't give a shit where we are in the draft order. I want this team to win week in and week out. I want a front office that's capable to find a great player, whether it's pick 1 or pick number 32 and everywhere between. I'm not walking with my tail between my leg and thinking that my team has to lose for us to get a good draft pick. Everyone watched Christmas and watched Lamar Jackson did to the Texans. That was pick 32, right? You can find good players in this league if you do your work and you have a good system. Like I want the Dolphins to win out. Like I want them to go 9-8 so that you can talk about the what ifs. Not good enough still. No one's going to sit here and say it's good enough, but I'd rather my team be 9-8 than 7-10. That's just me.
Bet you're wishing you didn't hit send on a few of those Chop Robinson tweets early in the season, huh?
Well, man, look, good for him. And I will say this, because I corrected it, I'd still take Brian Thomas Jr. over him today. Right now, I would take Brian Thomas Jr. over Chop.
What's he at right now, Brian Thomas Jr.?
He's over 1,000.
Now, obviously, it don't matter where he's at because of the situation he's in is absolutely terrible.
Horrible, and he's still playing well.
Yeah, what's he at? He's at, 112 targets, 73 receptions, 1,088 yards. Why he doesn't?
How many touchdowns?
9.
Yeah, for a rookie, that's insane, right? With
now,
Matt Jones at
honestly, given hindsight, I would actually still take Chop because who the hell would be helping Sealer and Calais Campbell out now? But if everyone was healthy, then I get what you're saying with Brian Thomas Jr., especially given like it would make you easier to move off of Tyreek right away. Then you probably got to wait for free agency and the draft to play out. You got to make Tyreek, if you're going to move off him, he's got to be a post-June 1st trade anyways. Anything other than that, you're taking on a massive cap penalty, right? And it makes no sense. So, but you got to wait for that. Now we're in a position. If you had Brian Thomas Jr. in the building, it'd already be easy. You'd know what you're doing. You'd be like, trading him in the offseason, post-June 1st trade, it's over. But now you got to wait for free agency and the draft to play out.
Well, one thing that's really a good indicator for a young pass rusher, right? And Daniel Hunter is the prime example of this. We all know Chop had 4.5 sacks his last year at Penn State. He's already got 6 in his first year. When he learns how to translate that pressure rate, and I did this tweet before the season that highlighted how he was the number 2 or 3 best pass rusher in country over the last 2 years. Like when you learn how to produce sacks, translate that to sacks, like that is, it takes time. The fact that Chop's already doing it here in his first season, and he only really took him a quarter of the season to start really getting it implemented. Like he's very far ahead of the curve. Like, and I don't really care what he gives us against the run. And I actually think he's actually been okay against the run, to be honest. Like, I just think if you have a guy that at whatever age he is to start next season, who's young and is going to, how he's taken leadership from Teron Armstead and worked with him, like that innate stuff is, I think, what we miss as a football team from our best players. Like, I don't think Tyreek Hill works like that. You know what I mean? Like, I think that is unbelievable to have, because what I think we said this, it feels like Chop's a special player. When we drafted him, there was a lull, and I was concerned for a little bit. I'm not going to act like I wasn't. But what I think we're seeing is that he is a guy that has like really high level superstar impact potential, where we're talking about getting double-digit sacks. I think this guy can flirt with 15 on a season basis, because his bend, he bends like a Gumby, but man, he gets flat and fucking can get to the quarterback quick, man. Like there is not that, like there's speed and there's that. And what that is something that's just, it's off the charts. Like we drafted him. I looked at an old tweet. I was like, this is probably the best athlete the Miami Dolphins ever drafted. And I think that holds true. So, you're looking at, things to take from the season, whether you make the playoffs, not, or anywhere in between. Hitting a home run, what appears to be your first round pick, is a really, really good sign, because we've had to sit on here and be like, oh, we got this guy in the first round, and, we're really counting on him next year. You know what I mean? Chop's taking this, and he's got the best celly in the league, too. And that on the sideline, man, that is freaking awesome.
That was
man.
awesome.
I
on the
love
sideline
it, dude.
getting
That is my favorite celly ever. That surpasses the Jason Taylor punch through the heart thing, man. Like, that is now my new favorite sack celebration.
Listen, I honestly, see, this is why I'm not getting crazy talking about next year, because I understand the reality of the situation. Look at CJ Stroud. Sophomore slumps are real.
God,
but I will say
awful.
this, bro. When I broke down the tape, I forget whether it was, I didn't break down the tape this week because it was Christmas or whatever, right? It was Christmas Eve. Then I had another show I had to do. My cat passing away got in the middle of everything. Basically, I wasn't going to sit there on Monday night, the night my cat passed away, and break down film. It just wasn't about to happen. You know what I mean?
I went through with my dog last year. It's fucking the worst, man.
It just wasn't about to happen. So anyways, my whole point was, I think it was last week. It was last week or the week before. Dude, there was one of Chop's sacks. Bro, I freeze framed it when he timed. See, what people don't realize is not only is he learning to string together, he's stringing together pass rush moves, but dude, his timing of the snap is
I know the play you're talking about.
Dude,
it looked like he was offside, but he wasn't.
Yeah,
right.
I freeze framed it, and he was already exploding out of his stance, and no one on either side had moved. Like, no one had moved yet. And his timing was just so on point. The ball was just starting to flick out, and no one was moving except him, and he was already exploding forward. And I'm just like, dude, like, wow. Did you see that one sack he had where, look at the dip move he used, where he just dipped under the guy and just gone. It was like, man, it's coming together out here. That's why when people were like, yo, you need to use him more inside, you need to use him more on side. No, he needs to learn how to win on the outside. That's where your bread and butter is going to come from as a 5-tech and such. He needs to learn how to win off the edge, because he also needs to learn how to set it. And he's getting better. Have you noticed he's getting better against the run too? He's making tackles. His pursuit's better. He's taking better angles. Like, all these reps off the edge have helped him learn how to win off the edge and pass rush better, and also set the edge better. And kicking him inside, no, man. That was because you're still gonna have the problem when you flex him out. You got to figure that out first. And right. I tip my cap to Anthony Weaver. He's done a phenomenal job developing this kid, and that's why when we drafted him, I said I like this, because look at what Weaver's done with developing defensive line players over the last couple of years. He's been phenomenal at it, and Chop is just another. And look at, what I love about him, bro? He hasn't shown patience with Kamara, but the patience he's shown with Chop and how it's paying off, kudos to you,
dude. Well,
Anthony Weaver.
And Chop's best tape for me, where I was like starting to really be like, holy crap, this guy's starting to get it, was actually against Buffalo, where he was giving Deion Dawkins, who's a Pro Bowl left tackle, everything he could handle. I mean, he had Dawkins on skates for a lot of the game. That's where, and I know the Dolphins defense has had its down times this year, and they've had some bad moments. But we also got to remember, Anthony Weaver inherited this team, a team that didn't have Christian Wilkins, that has severely downgraded at the other safety position, because Deshaun Elliott, Deshaun Elliott is what he is, but he's a significant upgrade to Jordan Poyer. We've had a horrible year from Jevon Holland. We did lose X's experience. And I think Weaver's had this defense hold together. And, if you really look at it, and we're going to talk about the Nucleus team, there's probably 3 players that I think you can count on that are going to be a part of this defense going forward, like for the long haul, like for years, not just next year. Brooks, Sealer, Chop. That's it for me. Like, there's the only people that I feel like have a long tenure here in Miami. Jevon Holland's gone. That's not even a question. If the Dolphins pay him, I'll be pissed for paying him. He is awful, man. I don't know what happened to him. He looks like a dude making business decisions.
Because he doesn't want to get hurt of his next bag. Have you ever seen him? The guy wants nothing to do. He'll get a rep here and there where he does, but for the majority of it, he wants nothing to do with the physical aspect of the game right now. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's a different player than we've seen, and not in a good way. I actually thought
he's getting washed out by receivers, bro.
I thought he was going to do the reverse in a contract year. But you know what the good news is, Reason? It makes the decision easy. There is no way you pay Jevon Holland. No. You go and pay the same money for Trey Smith, who's the best right guard in football. There you go. That's better money spent. But no, I think
Trey Smith.
I want him bad, dude. Did you see the all 22 cuts that came out against him against Pittsburgh?
No, I didn't watch them.
Dude, holy crap. I mean, he's not twice the player Robert Hunt, but he's significantly better than Robert Hunt. I'll just say that. Like, he's awesome. But, like, I think Weaver – and this is where, like, you know, whatever happens in the front office and all that stuff we've all, you know, talk about. We'll have more to talk. Mm-hmm. But, like, I think Weaver is on according to plan. Like, we're going to spend more resources on the defense. He has done a pretty good job. And I do think Chops Rob development has a lot to do with Anthony Weaver because that's what his MO was in Baltimore with young pass rushers.
Exactly.
Was getting them there. And that's where, look, maybe Mo Kamara was a 5th-round pick for a reason, right? Like, I don't think we write him off.
Yeah, but Neil, you know what's weird, bro? This is what's weird for me, Neil. He was tied for the most pressures on our team in that Colts game, and then he went right back to the bench, and he's barely got a look since. Like, I don't know if I've told you what my theory on Jaylen Wright is, but my theory on Jaylen Wright is he's being punished. My theory on Jaylen Wright is because his dad was vocal on Twitter, and then I was coming up here, and I was basically reiterating what his dad was saying on Twitter. I think it caught eyes, and I think they're punishing Jaylen Wright for his dad on Twitter. That's what I think is going down, because his dad would be like, why aren't you giving the ball to my son? Like, in critical moments where fumbles would happen or we wouldn't get short yardage. You know, he's just being a father vouching for his son. That's it, right? And I think I blame myself partly because I put it on a bit of a pedestal here by throwing it up here, and I think it makes no sense. It makes no sense for Jaylen Wright.
Especially hearing what we've heard about him over the last couple of weeks about how he's the guy who spent the most time at the facility all year, right? Like, it sounds like this guy's totally locked in. I will say this, though. Mostert has been running the ball very damn well.
But Wilson's getting carries over right now, bro. And that wasn't the case at the beginning of the season.
That's the head scratcher for sure, is Jeff Wilson getting the carries. And I think Jaylen Wright is part of next year more than he is going to be for this year. And that's okay. It's only, you know, probably 2 more weeks if we're being real about it. But I do think that's something where I think if you're a good organization, you nip it in the bud and you have a conversation, you know, to go out and punish a young guy for his dad being the dad. And
that's just my theory. That's my theory.
Yeah, I hear you. But, you know, it is what it is. We know that Mike is extremely loyal to his guys, the Wilsons and the Mosterts of the world for some reason. It's one of my pet peeves.
What's your take on Kamara?
I think they think that Quentin Bell is a better player right now, unfortunately. And
it's not saying much. Jesus.
It's not. And I think Kamara is one of those guys that needs a year. He was a 5th-round pick. I think he's a good. But, like, for me, like, when I think of a guy like Kamara, I never think of him as going to be an NFL starter. I think him as a good rotational piece, and I'm good with that if he develops into that. And that's what I want. I want the Dolphins to be this team that's always in the 3rd to 5th round drafting defensive linemen that are going to be a part of their rotation that can grow into starters. Those guys that are, like, you know, defensive tackles, like, even like guys like Travis Jones from Connecticut that is a 3rd-round pick that's like, you know, you throw him in there in a year or two, he's one of the better run-stopping defensive tackles in football. I just like that, like, MO from a team. But, yeah, man, like, you think about this rookie class, and we do a lot to Trey Smith. I think Trey Smith's going to be like $20 million a year. You know, and it's steep. It's steep, but we are a team that invests very little in our offensive line. So for me, if you want to do what you want to do and bargain shop on the line, you could go do that at left guard. I think you could get a good player for the draft. Here's where I am, and this is why. And I don't want to go down a tangent on this, right? But it was one of the big guys that cover sports, maybe Orlovsky. Somebody said, "Imagine what Tua Tagovailoa would be with a good offensive line." And, you know, I know what it's going to take to win in the AFC. You got to go through Allen, Lamar, Burrow, and Mahomes. Like, it is harder to win in the AFC than ever. Tom Brady never had to go through this type of gauntlet. Peyton Manning never had to go through this gauntlet. Mm-hmm. And when you look at those 4, the Allens, the Burrows, the Lamars, and the Mahomes, those are the 4 elite players, right, in the league. Those are like when I grew up, it was Marino, Elway, and Montana. That's who those guys are. And like Tua, the Herbert, the Hurts group, to me, is like the Boomer Esiason, the Warren Moons, and the Randall Cunningham type of group, right? Those top guys are so hard to beat because they're so good. Like, Like I don't really like. I know that Super Bowl rings and wins matter. Dan Marino, when you watch football tape, is as good as it ever got. Like he's never going to get the accolades of a Brady or Montana because he doesn't have the hardware. But football fans know Dan Marino was especially good, right? Like you're not going to go and get a quarterback. And like I know people are the big debate is keeping to it. Well, I can tell you right now, you're not going to get a Lamar Jackson in this draft. You're not going to get one in free agency. If your plan's Justin Fields, Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold, Jameis Winston, none of those guys are the caliber of Tua. Do I think that I want to see more from Tua in big games? Yeah. I think every quarterback that's not one of those big four could say the same, right? Like I think the Lions want to see more from Jared Goff in big games, right? The 49ers probably want to see more from Brock Purdy in big games. The Chargers better want to see more from Justin Herbert in big games. The Texans right now are scratching their head. What happened to our quarterback that looked like he was all world last year? He looks pedestrian at best this year, right? The Dolphins are in a situation where they've financially committed to Tua. What makes them the best version of themselves going forward is to get the best version of Tua Tagovailoa. And that means to me investing more than $6 million in your two guards. So, yeah, $20 million for Trey Smith, that's a lot of coin. But you know what? You can't find a way to make it better in the draft. You can't find a way to do it in free agency because you've had 20 damn years to try to fix this offensive line, and you never can figure it out. So it's like, to me, it's a huge investment. It'd probably be the only big signing you could have all offseason, but the Dolphins cap situation is going to be a lot better than anticipated. But, like, to me, a line that has on the right side Austin Jackson, Trey Smith, and Aaron Brewer, and if you get Armstead back with Paul developing, you can get by with a guy, not Robert Jones or Liam Eichenberg, but maybe a second-round pick or a third-round pick type of guy to start at left guard. Like, I think the Dolphins' offense as a whole, short yardage running situations, running the football in general, right, through the A-gap, right, with a right guard that quality, I think he makes everything so better. So I am on a huge Trey Smith agenda, and I'm even so crazy enough to say that I don't care if you draft 15 and you take Tyler Booker from Alabama, go get me two superstar guards and change the whole identity of your offense where you can run the ball. And that line would be the best line we've seen in here in a long, long time. Like, a lot of stuff has to fall out. You have to really commit to your offensive line. I don't care what's happened in the past. I think the notion of saying, hey, Chris Grier, we're going to keep you, but you have to draft these guys is dumb. Like, find someone who knows how to do this right, right? Like, find someone who's ingrained in these offensive linemen, because you watch the guard play, man, and almost every game. And, yes, Mike McDaniel's not the best version of himself. Tyreek makes a lot of mistakes. Tua's not the best version of himself in some of these games. But one constant is that these left guards suck. Left guard and right guard suck. Like, they are awful, man. And
well, we were better when Win. Look at. Do you think it's a coincidence we have a 100-yard rusher for the first time this season wins back?
And that's case in point. Like, that's case in point. A guy that's been on the shelf for 75% of your season comes out as your best guard all season.
Yeah, but he's been – they activated him weeks ago. And now I heard at the Patriots game he didn't look right and ready. But, man, even Win at 70% is better than what we have. But I do want to stop the show for 1 second. Josh45 says, happy holidays. All I want to say is hug your loved ones. Tomorrow's never promised. I lost my dad yesterday, and listening to you is bringing some normality back. Thanks, Reason. I appreciate you. Josh was here when I went live on Tuesday, the day after I lost my cat, and he was in the chat, and it brought normality back to me going live in front of all of you. The fact that I can reciprocate that, and we can reciprocate that, Josh, means a ton. But man, everyone give prayers up to Josh. I mean, this man lost his father on Christmas Day. Losing a loved one, especially your father or your mother, on a holiday is a burden no one should ever have to bear. So thinking of you, Josh, I hope you're okay, man. I know this Christmas season already tough on a lot of people as it is, and losing someone can only make it that much tougher. So just know we're thinking of you, man, and thinking of your dad, and anything we can do to bring normality back to your life, we're here for you, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's hard, man. Like, I like every year that I get a year older, you know, like, I deal with the inevitable fate that my parents are also getting older. You know, I have two heroes in my life, Dan Marino and Buzzy Driscoll, and that's how my life has always been. it's hard, man. And, Josh, all the prayers with you, man. During the holidays, there's probably nothing worse than that. This community is definitely here to have your back, man. And, memories are the most powerful thing in the world, man. When you can sit back and reminisce on the good times, I think there's nothing awesome being a father myself than being proud of your son and knowing the kind of guy Josh is. That's probably the case here. So, I think one of the things, man, is, keep your head high. It's all right to grieve, man. Hell, man, like, we're all here. You need to, send us a DM if you need anything to chat, you're lonely, whatever that might be, man. But sorry to hear the news, and, better days ahead for you, brother.
And shout out to Jeff Jew. He lost his little brother the day after Christmas. So he's celebrating him right now, because when he lost his little brother, it was on Boxing Day. So shout out to Jeff Jew, man. All of you that are going through right now, man, shout out to all of you. And we feel it. And we hope we just do nothing but send good vibes your way. And we hope you guys can just find reason to smile through the holidays.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Now, pivoting back, because you were kind of talking about the offensive line, and I'll because I believe the point you were making there was when you look at Lamar, Mahomes, Josh Allen, and who was the other one you named? You named 4.
Joe Burrow.
Look at the efforts those guys have made. Those teams have made to build the offensive line in front of them. Hell, look at the effort the Chargers have made to build the offensive line, like that in front of Herbert. Like, that's what's crazy, Neil. If you go to the 2020 draft, look at the effort the Eagles, the Chargers, the Packers, and the Bengals all made in front of their guys with the offensive line. Like Burrow, look at all the money they went trying to spend and find the right guys in front of them. Look at all the draft picks the Chargers invested. The Eagles already had the offensive line in place, but look at what they've done with replacing guys with good drafting. I mean, and then we're sitting here. And the Packers have always had a good offensive line because they learned this back, with Staubach and Favre, and they've always had that. And then we're sitting here like, hey guys, we're still trying to figure out our identity on the offensive line. But I'll do you one better with Allen and Burrow. Well, I'll take Burrow out of that, but with Allen, Mahomes, and especially with Lamar, look at those 3 guys. Who would you take? Their coaches or our coach?
Well, you're 100%. They're the 3 best coaching staffs in the AFC.
But I'll go deeper than that. Look at the Chiefs when they won last year. Look at how young that defense was, bro. Look at how young and locked in, and look at how they spent money. Okay, we'll spend money on Chris Jones because he's in the trenches. But if we gotta they let Jerry Sneed walk, they let guys walk, and look at this. And now look at this, Neil. Look at their record right now. All right, these Chiefs are 15-1, and you know what's crazy, Neil? They've only scored 30 points in 3 of those games.
And you know what? They're probably going to win a Super Bowl again.
These teams are constructed better. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Look at the Ravens in the trenches on the opposite side and their defense on the opposite side. Look at Allen. McDermott's a better coach, but look at how they built that defense where they let guys walk. We all thought it would hurt them. They lost Matt Milano, and they're still doing what they're doing, and they've never really cheapened on the offensive line in front of Josh Allen as well, right?
It's a good point about what you just said, though, the Bengals, for example, because it's hard. Joe Burrow is amazing, right? He's elite.
Yeah,
I think he's awesome. Yeah. But the Bengals aren't on the same tier as the Ravens, Bills, and Chiefs. You know why?
Organizationally.
Because their organization sucks like ours. That's the problem, right? Like, Joe Burrow is so great. Jamar Chase is so great. But they can't get over the hump. And when you look at those other 3 teams that we mentioned, sure, they got the best 3 quarterbacks in football, but Burrow's on their level.
Yeah.
The biggest difference is Zach Taylor can't even tie Andy Reid's shoes. Yeah. John Harbaugh, would walk laps around Zach Taylor. Yeah. You know what I mean? The Buffalo Bills, Zach Taylor wouldn't even be as good as Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator in Buffalo, right? Those organizations, they've had continuity at the general manager position, at the front office, right? Their owners do not meddle in their business. They stay away and let the football guys do the football stuff. They've had continuity at the coach and coaching staff. Now, the Ravens had to tear down their defensive coaching staff this year, but, they still have Zach Orr who's running their defense. So it's not just quarterback play, and I'm glad you're saying that, but all 3 of those teams, they draft and invest in offensive line. They always have done that. The Ravens do it all the time. And you're talking about the Chargers. The Chargers might not have the sexy weapons they had when Herbert entered this league, but they have more wins. And the reason is they got their GM, Joe Horitz from Baltimore. They got Jim Harbaugh in there. And then when they're on the clock at pick 5 and Malik Neighbors is shining and sitting right in front of them, they still took Joe Alt.
Mm-hmm.
They still took Joe Alt. And they don't, and Joe Alt's playing right tackle because they got Rashawn Slater. They said, we care so much about the trenches that we're going to take a guy who's as polished as there is as a left tackle that's come out in 5 years, and we're going to move him to the right side. And we all know that Malik Neighbors is going to be a superstar in this league. But for our team-building responsibility, we're going to go out and we're going to build the trenches. And what they're going to do this year, go get Tyler Warren. That's what they're going to go do. They're going to go build in the trenches with a guy that can block, catch, do it all at the tight end position and be a weapon. Like what their formula they're building, like I said this to a lot of people, I don't care about Herbert. The day the Chargers got Jim Harbaugh, they became a serious franchise because you know that guy is going to change the standard of everyone in that building, right? And you can't. A good NFL, like you look at any of those contenders you name, they're not rolling out Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg. Robert Jones, what do you have? 3? Did he have 3 holds on Sunday?
2. They both negated
awful.
Drives. They both negated
awful.
drives.
Like your left guard shouldn't be killing you on drives like that, right? Like, and like to me, it's like what we have to overcome as a team. We're not as well coached. We don't have as good a front office. Our quarterback's not as good as those top 3 teams. It's okay. We can say that. But what we have to overcome on top of that is a team that has horrendous offensive line that consistently holds or false starts and puts us behind the chains. So that offense that we've put all this money in is always working from behind. So we make it harder for ourselves. Beating the Chiefs, you look around, it's almost impossible, right? If you hurt yourself, it's not going to happen. Beating Baltimore and Baltimore during the playoffs or Buffalo and Buffalo during the playoffs, you got to be almost perfect. You have to have people rise to the occasion. You can't have a 3rd and 2, you get the first down, and then it's 3rd and 12 because Robert Jones held or Liam Eichenberg gets blown off the ball and gives up a sack. It's just not acceptable standard of football. And look, we're talking about the guards. I had that same responsibility on the safety position on defense. What a disgrace that unit has been this year. It is. I thought it was going to be a better safety unit than we've had in years.
And see, this is what I think isn't talked about enough. Brewer started off really good this year, but he's had some rough patches, and it's because of the jabronis on each side of him.
Right. Well, you play sports, dude. When you're a number 4 hitter in baseball, and the guy in front of you tries to hit home runs all the time, and he pops out, you can't go for the fences. You got to learn how to hit singles because the guy in front of you is not doing your job, his job. Yeah. So, like, at the end of the day, like, his job's harder because he's got to overcompensate for failures on both sides of him. Like, the center's the linchpin of an offensive line. If both sides around you has pressure crushing down on you, your instincts are going to be like, okay, I know I have X responsibility, but I got to help this guy, or 2 is not coming off the ground. That's what we're doing. We're not dealing with bad offensive guard play. We're dealing with, like, dumpster fire, horrific, bottom of the league, worst out of 60 guards at safety and at guard. And we're talking about a lot of guard, and I'll just do this one caveat, because I've seen, like, people be like, oh, if the Dolphins draft Malachi Starks, they're a dumb organization. Sign me up to be a dumb organization then, because if you can get Malachi Starks at 15, I'm listening to that all day long, you know? So safety is a big need, but guards, I mean, on both sides of the ball, those are the 2 units that are, and I would say linebacker, but damn, Jordan Brooks is so good that, like
he needs
Jordan
help,
Brooks,
though, brother. He needs help.
Well, and I think
Anthony Walker, since David Long left, got way too comfortable.
Sucks.
And did you see David Long got waived today by Detroit?
And signed by the Titans, right?
But then it got canceled because he failed the medical.
You know what, dude? I'm gonna throw a wild. I'd sign his ass back.
Really?
Yeah, I'd bring him back. I mean, who did we?
Did you see what they did today? Let's talk about a few things today. Did you see what they did today?
I did not. I haven't seen any sports today.
Okay, so we'll talk about 2 things because it's the same position. Number 1, I know you saw a couple days ago, they decided not to activate Bradley Chubb from pup.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So either that tells us Chubb ain't ready, or this team don't think it going down. So they're like, why bother? Okay. So that's number 1. Well, let's talk about that. But also, I don't know if you saw it today, they caved. They waived
Shaq Barrett.
Shaq Barrett from the retired reserve list today. So
who's his agent?
Drew Rosenhaus.
I think they're doing a favor.
But here's the deal, bro. Check it. The Dolphins, they waived former Pro Bowl edge rusher Shaq Barrett from the reserve retired list today. So Barrett can play again this season if he clears waivers on Friday. If another team claims him, then Barrett would be ineligible to play the rest of the season.
Right.
So someone needs to claim that financial cap hit. And I you know what I think people are waiting for? They're going to wait to see if we get knocked down and Calais hits. That's what I think people will be more in tune to get, is a Calais Campbell than Shaq Barrett.
Right. Yeah, I think they did a favor for Drew Rosenhaus. We know how close Drew and the Dolphins are. I think that he probably called him. It's like, Shaq, what's the play? Like, let's. And I was on the same. I was fine with the Dolphins holding him hostage because we signed him to a job and he didn't do it. In retrospect, like at the time, you know, I know there's a lot of fans that love AVG. Now it looks like we made the wrong move. It's easy to say now, right? Andrew Van Ginkel's been a superstar this year. Shaq Barrett didn't play, so I agree. That seems like a favor.
So does Bradley Chubb to you seem like they want to protect themselves from any more guaranteed money so they can get off the contract? Because if he were to get re-injured, it's a guarantee of like $10 million next season. They're putting themselves in a position where A, they can either have him healthy for next year, Neal, or B, they can move off him with no guaranteed money on the books. What do you think this is with Chubb?
I think when he played that and got injured against Baltimore, that's the last down he's ever playing as a Dolphin. Unfortunately, that he went that way, and I think this is a move that the Dolphins have made the decision they're going to move on post-June from him, and they don't want to pay him any more money. So they get out $20 million in cap savings. I think that they made it. And I'm going to throw a crazy scenario in because we saw this come out. And I think this impacts Jaylen Phillips. And so here's what I think happens. I think the Dolphins win the next 2 games, and I don't think anything changes. I think Grier's back. I think McDaniel's back. And who's the guy who likes to make big moves? Chris Grier, right? I pay a lot of attention. Maxx Crosby and the Raiders, because I think the Dolphins are a very serious contender from him. I know that we know the relationship with him and McDaniel, but it's such a Dolphins move. It's such a Dolphins move to make a trade for Maxx Crosby. They haven't financially committed to Jaylen Phillips. He's coming off a second significant injury. You cannot tell me. And I don't want to lose our draft pick, by the way. I don't want to lose our draft pick. I'm just being honest. I love Jaylen Phillips. I'm thinking how the Dolphins operate. And the notion that you could potentially pair Chop Robinson, Maxx Crosby together for the long haul has to be attractive. The Dolphins value the edge position more than anything in the world, right? They've shown that year after year in the draft. And there's definitely not a player in this year's draft, and this is Travis Hunter included, that is close to Maxx Crosby. Maxx Crosby's what, a top 5 defensive player in football? Like, he's that good.
When he's on. Yeah, when he's on.
Yeah, so I'll say this. I don't know necessarily if I want them to go that route because of the financial commitment and like the trading hasn't worked for us to the level that I want. I just think the Dolphins are seriously going to be contenders. Do you remember all the positive stuff Maxx was saying? Well, look, it's funny. This is where I'm going. I think that the trade that you can make without giving your first-round pick is your second-round pick, Tyreek Hill, and then a pick in 2026 so that you can keep your first-rounder. And the Raiders are an organization that I think would like to have a Tyreek Hill type player, to be honest.
If they draft a quarterback, yeah.
Yeah, and like I think they're going to get the third quarterback in this draft, and I think they're going to get the guy that I like. I think they're going to draft Moreau, which will be very overdrafted at that point for him.
Did he declare?
He hasn't declared yet, but I hear he's going to.
Well, he did like he did a post like a couple weeks ago saying, "Let's run it back."
Yeah, I know, but then I heard from a guy who writes for the Alabama
that he's declaring.
Yeah, that he's more than likely going to declare because of Aller. But like long story short, yeah, I think that you can get rid of Tyreek Hill's contract to the Raiders, and I think that's a route the Dolphins should explore if it's there. Here's where I am with Jaylen Phillips. I love Phillips. He's probably one of my 5 favorite Dolphins. I have serious concerns about him staying healthy going forward. I can't say I don't. Yeah, I can't. I love the guy, but like it just seems like he's snake bitten with serious injuries. Am I impressed with how he works out to get back? And dude, the guy looks he looks as chiseled as any dude I've ever seen in the NFL. He looks like it, but dude, sometimes your body's just breaking down, and he's young. Like I could see Chris Grier really looking at that Maxx Crosby thing. Do you remember before the season when Maxx was on the radio saying how awesome the Dolphins were? And how he thought they were going to make a noise?
You're 110% right. definitely be sniffing this out.
And it's such a move that we would make.
But I wouldn't trade. I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. I ain't giving you a second and a first of Tyreek. I would give you Tyreek and a 5th, 6th, or 7th from next year for Maxx Crosby. I'm not giving you a second. We need these picks. We need this because this is the problem. Like, this is the problem. Like Bradley Chubb. We traded for Bradley Chubb. Okay.
That's a bad deal in retrospect.
We traded a first-round pick, right?
And a third.
I'm not done. We traded a first-round pick, Chase Edmonds, and a 4th-round pick for Chubb and a 5th rounder. All right? Would you sit here and then we double dipped and then we turned around, Neil, we paid Bradley Chubb. And so given what we've got in return from that Bradley Chubb trade, that was a bust.
A bust. Yeah, bad trade. C minus grade trade.
Yeah, but it's deeper than that, Neil, because look at this. What could that first round pick have been in 2023? What the 4th round pick? What could that have been?
And we lost the first round that pick because of Stephen Ross that year. So we had 2 first round picks that we lost.
I don't know, man. I think that, and just when you look back at what we got in return, we ended up having to draft Chop Robinson anyways.
Right. Well, it's the easy out, but look, the Ravens traded a 2nd for Roquan Smith for about half the money, and he's a far better player, right? And we had a needed linebacker.
Yep.
And it's not like Roquan circled and starred the Baltimore Ravens that I wanted to go there. He wanted out of Chicago so bad that the Dolphins had every opportunity to make the move. Their front office believes in pass rush first and foremost. I think the Dolphins front office believes in positions more than players, if that makes sense. They view pass rushers so important that they'll go get the lesser player and pay more than, than a better player at a lesser position on their power ranking scale. Yeah, but Bradley Chubb overall, when you think about it, look, he started off very slow here. Vic Fangio, the one good thing we got out of Vic Fangio is we got a career year out of Bradley Chubb. He got hurt late in the season. I thought he was going to have a impact on the back half of the season. He's not even going to play a snap for us. I'm pretty safe to say that that is a horrific trade considering it was a first-round pick because this Maxx Crosby thing, and this is just conjecture this time, I don't want to trade our first-round pick for any player right now.
No, because I don't want to trade any day 1 or day 2 picks.
Yeah, I really wouldn't want to either. Now, if you compare day 2 picks, and maybe do it down in the future, I would not be upset with getting Maxx Crosby. I will just say that, right? But with that said, I think the Dolphins need to really go the total opposite of what they were doing with the F the picks model and do everything now moving forward through the draft. I don't care what the salary cap looks like. I don't want them to spend big in free agency unless it's Trey Smith because it sucks, dude. The free agent market sucks.
Yeah, it sucks.
It's awful. That's spending bad money. Go acquire more draft picks and build via the draft. You got a great foundation. This draft class with Chop, Patrick Paul, Malik Washington, Jaylen Wright, Mo Kamara, they're looking pretty damn good early, right? They're all making some sort of, impact here or there, maybe Kamara not, but they look good early. You need to double down. You have 11 picks in this year's draft. You need to walk away, and they really need to be we are going to build a monster in the trenches. We are going to do everything we can. And I think the one caveat to that is I do think the Dolphins should look really hard at Jahad Campbell, the linebacker from Alabama in round 2. If he's there, he's the definition of physical. You pair him next to Jordan Brooks, and you've transformed your linebacker room. The safeties, I love Malachi Starks. I'll be honest, it's the least of my worries because I don't think safety means a lot in today's NFL as much as it used to.
Yeah.
So, but I will say this.
Justin Simmons just taught us that, huh?
Right. Well, I joke about this, dude. If Chris Grier is the GM, the player we're going to take at 15 is Benjamin Morrison, the quarterback
from Notre Dame.
Corner coming off of an injury, and he's a good player. But I'm done drafting injured players. I don't want it anymore.
I kind of feel like he looks at it like this, and kind of going off of what you said earlier about if I understand what you meant. I feel like he looks at units, but he only looks at specific positions out of those units. Okay, we need D-line help. Well, it has to be an edge rusher in first round. No way am I taking a defensive tackle. You know what I mean?
Right.
Corner. oh, I don't care how studly that nickel corner is and how he could play on the boundary and even safety. It's got to be a pure boundary corner. Like, that's how I feel like he looks at the draft. You know what I mean? Like, bro, you know how big of a fan I was of him last year. Look at how he was balling. It's absolutely criminal Cooper DeJean fell as far as he fell last year. And look at how he's balling.
Too. I mean, like, both those guys were linebackers. I mean, safeties in year two. Like, a guy they're going to love, dude, because he's versatile. He can play on the boundary, the slot, and safety, is Jedi Barron from Texas.
Yeah.
The Dolphins are going to love him. I love him. So,
yeah, he's a beast.
I like him, too. He's great, but he's like the Swiss Army knife guy that they love.
Yeah. I know they wouldn't have it.
Though.
He is, but there's a couple good corners in this draft, bro. Like, I really like Will Johnson. There's a couple good corners in this draft. You know what I mean? So, anyways, all right. So we talked about Chubb and Shaq, and it's kind of led to a discussion on Chris Grier. But if the Dolphins get eliminated this weekend, either by the Chargers and the Broncos both winning or them losing against the Browns, what should the Miami Dolphins do Monday morning once they're eliminated? I know the first thing I'd be doing, even before I get to Chris Grier's office, the pink slip would be slid under Danny Crossman's door before he walks in. You know, what would you do? Because we're talking a lot about draft and what we should do in the draft, Neal, or what Chris Grier would do in the draft. But there's not even an assurity that he will be the guy making these decisions come free agency, come the draft. Because I'll tell you one thing, and I've said this to you already while we've been on air, and I've said it multiple times while I've been on air by myself. It feels like 1600s France or England, where a crime's been committed and they don't know whether they got the right guy, but the public needs a public execution either way. And that's where Grier comes in, that you've been here for 24 years. You're the common denominator. Okay, me and you always talk on this channel about blueprints like Ozzie Newman set out for this, for the Ravens to follow and buy in, et cetera, et cetera. We always talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and their internal blueprint that have led to so many winning seasons. And he's been around for 24 years and we don't have that. And certain units he's been very hands-on with, Neal, like Eichenberg trading up, like Austin Jackson with a top 20 pick, like Aaron Brewer, free agency. Taron Armstead, that money units he's really been hands-on and invested in still don't have an identity. So what would you do? This team gets eliminated Sunday. You wake up, you're Stephen Ross, Monday morning. What are you doing?
Yeah, look, Chris Grier, for me, should be removed of his duties, whether they lose Sunday or they win out. I still would. Yeah. Because for me, we set the tone when we did our season projection. It was playoff win or nothing.
Yeah.
Like, we're tired of the participation trophy.
Yeah.
Like, I think they have is it a 4% chance to make the playoffs right now? Something crazy low.
Yeah.
So say they win, they're going to be the 7th seed and have to go to Buffalo and play in Buffalo. And you know what I mean? And if it's cold, it's like, it's the same bullshit narrative. It's the same cycle that we've been in.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't think that Chris Grier has done a failing job in the last 5 years, but I don't care. The results aren't there. You need to change it up. You need something different. You need a new voice. You need a new philosophy for your organization. The philosophy under Chris Grier has not worked. He's invested heavily in trades. He's invested in the draft when he had 3 picks in 2020. He's had all the ammo to build a winner, and it hasn't happened. And I think there's a lot of factors with coaching and stuff that plays to it. But you know what? You got to cut a snake off by the head. Chris Grier has to go. It has to happen. There's Dolphins fans that say they want the Dolphins to lose over the next 2 weeks so this happens. And I get it. I can't wake up on a Sunday and want the Dolphins to lose. It's just not how I roll.
No,
but I think that Chris Grier, I think it would be a huge sigh of relief. And if they made the right hire, right, all the other things we worry about, quarterback and McDaniel, it's going to be under evaluation for 1 year, right? Like, teams are no longer afraid of dead money to get out of contracts. It's a part of the game now. It's a business. They know how to maneuver it, how to structure it. There's all these details and, T's and C's and conditions and contracts that, they know how to get themselves out. Grier has to go, man. And I like Chris Grier. I really do. I think
we've defended him up here.
He's given me the most hope I've had of this franchise in the last 20 years by far, right? Like, more so than any coach. I will say what scares me is how happy Stephen Ross was after that win against the 49ers.
Yeah.
It scares me because you know what he thinks? We just beat the Tino's in the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, and if Tua never got hurt this year, where could we be at?
Right. That's how Stephen Ross thinks. So if I had to put
can I just say this, Neil? You know how he should be thinking, Neil? He should be thinking, you guys are going to use the excuse to me that Tua was hurt and that's why we're at. Well, guess what? Was Tua playing for the Arizona loss, the Buffalo loss in week 9, the Green Bay loss, and the loss against the Texans? That excuse goes out the window, bro. Anyways, continue.
Right. No, here, if I was Stephen Ross, here's how I'd think. Every time I turn on the TV, Lamar Jackson's winning an MVP or he's one of the best players, and I wanted that him. Dude.
Yeah.
Why am I paying someone to do a job that I can do better than him? That's what I would think. I'll be honest. Like, that's the ruthless, like, you know, that's me. But with that said, it is what it is. I think that Stephen Ross and loyalty is an awesome thing, right? Like, I love loyalty. I think it's amazing. Chris Grier has to go. It has to happen, man. They cannot sell us on the same stuff they've sold us on. Injuries to the quarterback. Like, they laughed at a podium when people questioned the offensive line. Like, they laughed. And, man, a picture's worth 1,000 words and a video's worth even more. Like, that to me was you kissing your fate and saying it when you watched Liam Eichenberg, the mistake you made, you traded up for, still doing it. And I'm not just putting on Liam, I'm just making an example here.
Yeah.
Chris Grier he's been in the building 20 years. He's had since 2020 is all I really care about because that's when he got those 3 first-round picks, right? It's not good enough, man. Reason we got to do better. All the luck in the world. Chris Grier's made generational wealth for his family. He's done a great job. You know what? He's good enough to go get hired somewhere else, I truly believe. But the Dolphins just need fresh blood in that organization. They need somebody who's vibrant, that can bring new ideas, that can challenge the current regime.
And new philosophies.
New philosophies. And they have to find someone that understands that NFL, no matter who it is, it doesn't matter if you got Dan Marino, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, football is always won in the trenches. It's always won. You watched the first drive of the Ravens game yesterday and watched Derrick Henry run against Houston, and I looked at everyone in my family. I was like, it's fucking on today. Derrick Henry is going to be mulling these dudes over. That's how you win. What the Ravens do, right, on offense, they didn't reinvent the wheel. They run pretty basic schemes, and they say, man-to-man, we're going to kick your ass, and that's what we're going to do. I think we've over-complimented. I think we've tried to hoodwink our way into winning football. We need to go back and say, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's rebuild this from the right way up.
We tried to be the first team basically to win a Super Bowl building from the outside in, when to win in the December, January, and February months, and to win on the road in a cold AFC, you got to build from the inside out. Right? Like, there's certain things, I say this all the time, there are certain things in football that will never change no matter what year it is. An elite historic defense can win you a championship. A run game will always be needed. You can always win from the pocket, and games will always be won and lost from the trenches. Those things will never, ever change with the way the game of football is designed. Never. And so it just, like, I said preseason. What was I saying preseason? I was saying, name a team that's had this kind of offensive line and won the AFC Championship or the Super Bowl.
Not gonna happen.
I always use Mahomes and the Chiefs as the example against the Buccaneers. They didn't design it to be that way, but injuries led to them having a depleted and very inferior offensive line against a very stout front seven in Tampa Bay. And remember the charts? Patrick Mahomes ran for like 200 or 300 yards behind the line of scrimmage when they calculated what he did all game, running for his life. And then what have they done ever since? They've never been stingy on the offensive line since they learned that lesson and came up short in the Super Bowl. We can't even get that far and keep coming up short because of the offensive line, and we still haven't learned the lesson. Like, we can talk about, I agree with you. the Bengals are just as bad of an organization, but at least they got someone in the building figuring out we got to spend resources on the offensive line, people.
Yep, they drafted Amarius Mims, they signed Orlando Brown Jr., they signed Ted Karras, they signed Alex Kappa. Yeah, they've invested in their line.
And you know what it feels like? It feels like Grier saying, I don't want to invest a ton in there, and McDaniel saying, don't worry, bro, I can make it work. That's what it feels like. It feels like someone is saying, I don't want to invest. The other person is enabling it, saying, don't worry, I can make it work. It's exactly what it feels like.
100%. And that's got to change. You know what it should be? I'm the GM. This is what we're doing. Fall in line. That's what it should be. That's what we need.
And you know what? Kudos to Chris Grier. And this is where he screwed up. You have done that before. You remember in the 2023 draft, McDaniel wanted to take Achane in the second round. You said, nope, I got all this intel on Cam. I'm taking Cam Smith in the second round. We'll come back for Achane in the third round. Now, if we were to do a redraft, Achane would go in the first round, and Cam Smith would be a UDFA at the rate he's at right now. Because I don't know if you saw what was said today about Cam Smith by what was it? The defensive? Who was it? It was one of our coaches. I'll tell you right now. I got it right here. So basically, Cam Smith today, it was secondary coach Brian Duker said on Cam Smith and what he needs to do from here. Quote, the biggest thing I've talked to Cam about is we would like to see him put on the body armor to play in full shape. Needs to be in shape to do that. Your body has to be in shape to do that. Your body has to be in shape to do that. He literally repeated himself twice. So anyways, the whole point of that story was you've stood your ground, but you got the pick wrong. Right. And the coach ended up getting the pick right. You know what I mean?
Big. That's a big indictment. That's a big indictment on him. It has to be. So like I think, you know what though? I think there'd be a sense of relief from Chris Grier if he was fired. I'll be honest. I think he's probably pressing and stressed and not in a good situation. That's not when you do your best work. It hasn't worked. When you are in a situation where it hasn't worked, you both know it. Both parties know it's not going the right way. And sometimes getting out feels better. So, yeah, I think, look, he brought this team at least back to relevance. Like, the Dolphins have been off back-to-back appearances. You know what I mean? Like, that's a big deal. They are a team right now that the season could have slipped away from them, and then they could have been drafting top 10. But they're likely going to – I think they're going to win out and be 9-8, which is pretty impressive when you don't have your starting quarterback for 4.5 games. Like, so it's a participation trophy. But in the grand scheme of things, you're not the New York Jets. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. So, like, yeah, I think whoever gets it, and it's a good kind of segue into our next time, whoever gets it's going to have a pretty good foundation to build off of, right? Like, there are players here that people are going to want. This isn't a team that has a lack of talent. That's for sure. They are. Yeah. I still would say they're a top 5 to 7 roster in football, despite their deficiencies. So
the
cover's not fair.
If you were gonna take a Nucleus now, you wanted us to pick 5 players. I ended up doing 5 players on offense and 5 players on defense. But but I'll tell you, I'm agree with you 110%. Once you got on defense, after you got from those 3 you named earlier. What a struggle! I'll tell you that much. So, anyways, who when you view this team, this Nucleus, who would you view as the Nucleus on this team?
See, on offense, it's going to be Tua. He's the quarterback. I know that the grass is always greener and that everyone wants to replace him. The reality is he's a top 10 quarterback in football. There's not a tree that grows top 10 quarterbacks in football. The Dolphins aren't bad enough. Like I could get if you're intrigued if you had the first overall pick and you wanted to maybe draft a quarterback there. But look, Tua's the guy here. So Tua, Devon Achane is a star. I don't know if he's a running back or a weapon, but whatever he is, he's awesome. And him as a pass catcher is brilliant to see. I think Jaylen Waddle is, and that's because I think in the post-Tyreek world, Waddle is a better football player. I actually think that, the reason I'm ready to move off of Tyreek is there's a redundancy there, and Waddle's 4 years cheaper. And I think Waddle is a guy that you can build that offense around and deserves more targets. So I would say him. I think Aaron Brewer has been a linchpin for that offensive line. So he'd be my 4th guy on offense. And if I had to go to a 5th, that it gets tough. Man, Oh,
So,
Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you got the same exact 5. The only one I have is Brewer/Jackson. Because
Yeah,
Jackson,
look,
you can make the argument for Jackson too. Look at where the run game went after Jackson went down. But me and you have the same exact 5, basically.
and Austin Jackson, I don't think he was playing as good as he was before the contract, but he is still a middle of the pack right tackle. And on our offensive line, that's a big thing. Our running game has went to shit without him in it. Austin Jackson is a good football player. He's not a great, he's good. And I'll take a good right tackle.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so
Defense?
I got
You
two
wanna go first with
HN.
me?
No, I got 2 HN Waddle, Jonnu, Brewer/Jackson, and I got an honorable mention to Malik Washington because
For
of
sure.
how good he's been. But
He's
it was
playing
easier to
tough.
pick, bro. It was easier to pick offense than it was defense.
Well,
For defense, I got Chop, Sealer, Brooks, and then it became real hard. And I went with Kader Kohu and Jalen Ramsey, and then my honorable mention, and it's not even defense, but would be Jason Sanders.
So my 5 defense would be the same exact ones you have. And I think Chop's self-explanatory.
Yeah.
I said this in a tweet. Zach Sealer is the better player than Christian Wilkins for half the cost. I believe
agree.
it. He's probably going to get double-digit sacks again as a defensive tackle. He's the heartbeat of this football team. Zach Sealer is a machine, man. I couldn't imagine how good he could be like we were seeing with Wilkins. I think another defensive tackle in round 1 is a real possibility to pair with Zach Sealer, which is awesome.
One of the Michigan boys?
Yeah, right. Exactly, man. Jordan Brooks has freaking been awesome. He's another really good contract that they had the offseason. My favorite thing about him is he doesn't seem like he wants to accept what's going on in Miami. He doesn't want this to be who he is. He doesn't think the team's playing up, and he has no problem calling it out. I love that. This organization for years has been so soft. We need a guy that's going to point the finger at themselves, and I love that. Jalen Ramsey has slipped the last couple weeks, but overall he's had a very good season. He's our best defensive back by spades. He's still a top-rated 12 corner in football.
I would start having the discussion with him if he wants to move to safety full-time.
Yeah, I would too. And if not, I would say that, look, from after these 3 guys, I think you could make, if someone was willing to eat Ramsey's money, the Dolphins could potentially move him. It wouldn't surprise me if he wanted to go somewhere else or something. So, but I think as you look at the defense now, he is, and I do think Kader Kohu is a guy that, he has his bad moments, but he has his good moments, and he's only a restricted free agent, so you won't have to break the bank to keep him. I think his contract would be 4.5 to keep. He's worth every penny at 4.5. Because I would also have thought Kendall Fuller, but man, Kendall Fuller gets a little hurt too much for my liking. He's hurt a lot, man. He's always a little nicked up. And I love Calais Campbell, but it wouldn't surprise me if he just decides to out retire this year.
If he was younger, we would have had him in our nucleus, right?
But I think what that exercise does, Reason, the Dolphins need to focus on adding some defensive pieces this offseason too. That draft is perfect for them. Jahad Campbell, we said in round 2 as a linebacker would be perfect for him. Get a defensive tackle, find a way maybe to pair up your thirds, move back up into round 2 and get a guard. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you're going to spend big in free agency on guard, maybe you don't have to spend as high of a draft pick. But, there is a lot that the Dolphins can do to make this roster better. I think long story short is the defense of line with Chop and Sealer seems like it could be a real strong suit of this team moving forward. Could you go get a Kenneth Grant, a Walter Nolan, someone to pair on that defensive line to get them to the next step? Another guy that I like a lot for the Dolphins is Derek Harmon from Oregon. He's at 6'4". He's 310 pounds. He reminds me a little bit of Calais Campbell, actually. So he's a big, strong dude. And there's guys in the round 3, 4,
I like
5.
Deion Walker from Kentucky, 6'6", 350. Buddy, they flex him out as an edge. The guy they use him as a stand-up rusher at times. The guy's a freaking monster. And I think
awesome.
If Weaver's here, that's the type of guy Weaver could polish into a serious problem.
Right.
I really do.
There's a guy in the middle rounds that I think they're going to love. He actually reminds me a lot of Michael Pierce for the Ravens. Jamari Caldwell from Oregon. He's the other Oregon guy on the defensive line. If you watch them, they have Jordan Birch, who's an underrated edge guy. I think he has 9 sacks or something. But Jamari Caldwell, he's a big zero tech. But, dude, he runs stuff in full, man. He's a type of guy that, those are the guys in the middle rounds that I want this team to just tough run eaters. But I will say, I don't know if you're depending on the cost, I'm all about bringing back Benito on a 1-year deal too.
Yeah, he's been good. So is Deshaun Hand.
Yeah, I like both those guys on 1 year, like whatever. Don't break the bank signings. You're going to be depth pieces. I'd like to bring both those guys back.
Yeah, I agree. So what do you? I'm guessing you think this is easy peasy this weekend?
Yeah, no Nick Chubb. Thank God we didn't trade for.
Is it Dorian Thompson-Robinson starting against us?
Yeah, he's awful, man. He's not a quarterback in the NFL. I think the Dolphins are going to eat. I think Myles Garrett's checked out. That's another name that could be on the block.
Yeah, he looks checked out. Yeah.
I think the Dolphins, and I want to really pay attention to the temperature because it's going to be cold, and the Dolphins are going to win, and then the Browns aren't going to be a good enough team. The Dolphins, I think, are going to smack the Browns around a little bit, and I think obviously Cleveland's going to be drafting top 10 this year. They're not the team that we thought they were going to be. But they're a team that if you can win in the cold on the road in Cleveland, I don't really care about the temperature or the competition. I want to see them check that box. I want to see them, and I'll be honest, and this is just personal for me. I'd like to see Tua have a really big day in the cold. I'd like to see.
But then it'll be, it's against the Browns, Neal.
Yeah, but you know what? I'll say this: that Browns team beat Baltimore. They did, and. I like it is what it is. Like I want to see them start to get familiar with winning it because then it's going to be cold at the Jets. You go out and win 2 cold games, and like
that's the game I'm worried about, Neal.
Oh, I mean, look, Aaron Rodgers
just because of how close. Yeah, exactly, and how close they made that game, and now we got to go into their house. They're going to be looking for for the bounce back.
But Olu's out, Fashanu. I think Chop Robinson could have a career day against that team, but no, I get it.
But they came back. What were they down by against the Jags? They were down big against the Jags, and they came back and won that game.
Yeah, I don't remember. It was a back and forth game. I mean, look, Rodgers is playing better, but he's still not making. He's just trying to feed the ball to Devontae Adams right now. That's all he's doing.
Yeah, make his buddy feel good.
Yeah, and he's going to try to throw his fight. It wouldn't surprise me if Rodgers gets his 500th touchdown though this week and doesn't even play against us. It still wouldn't surprise me if that happened. They hate him.
So?
Yeah, I think Rodgers has been lobbying to go back to the Jets, and I think the owner's already decided he's going to move on. I think they're going to be Kirk Cousins players.
Oh my God,
that's where I think they're heading. Because again, they're not going to be in draft position. I don't even think who they play. You know what's funny is I think the Jets could upset Buffalo this weekend. I know that sounds crazy. I just think they've always played them pretty tight. They split with them 3 of the last 4 years. I think they could upset the Bills this week. And if they did that, they'll move down the draft board some more. But now I think we're going to beat them. Tua's got the Jets number, man. He just does. He's got their number. Who plays that game? I mean, for both sides, you don't even know where anyone's playing for at this point.
Do you think the Broncos and the Chargers win this weekend?
Broncos are going to lose to the Bengals. Who do the Chargers play?
Isn't it Vegas?
Yeah, the Chargers win. See, my problem is we need the Bengals.
Oh, no, New England. It's New England.
Yeah. I can see the
Vegas
Bengals. But we don't need both. We need we need the Broncos to lose out and the Colts to lose, right?
Yeah, one of the we need the Colts to lose once, and then either the Broncos or the Chargers to lose out.
The Colts aren't. The Colts play the Giants this week, and then they play someone awful, Jags, last week in the season.
Yeah, but they haven't won 3 in a row all year.
Yeah, that's what scares me. I actually think the Broncos I guess the Chiefs have nothing to play for in the last week of the season. But Andy Reid doesn't strike me as the guy who's just going to roll out the carpet for the Broncos.
It's going to be 23 or 24 days of sitting if they don't play.
Yeah, so that's why I think the Broncos do lose out. Because I'll be honest, I know he's had a good real. I still don't believe in Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix is going to have a sophomore slump. I still don't believe in Bo Nix. I think they lose out. I think the Chargers get in. The Steelers are obviously going to get in. So that last spot, I mean, we're going to be praying for Colts loss because I do think the Dolphins win best team. And, it is what it is. I guess going in and get your brains beat in by Buffalo again isn't something we're immune to. At least you can play tic-tac-toe with 3 playoff appearances in a row if you're looking for silver linings.
Yeah. But because I think even if they were getting the playoffs, you would need a win in the playoffs to save jobs,
What's the Knights game?
Tonight's game? Bears in Seattle.
Yeah, see, God, I wish it was the Broncos tonight, or the Colts tonight, so I actually cared about watching it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
like, I'd love to be cheered on like the Giants tonight against the freaking Colts, But it is what it is. But no, man, we win. We win handily, and we get to what that puts us at 8-8 on the season, so we get to 500. And I do think that in a disastrous season, there are silver linings. And the fact that the Dolphins didn't fold, I do think, is a silver lining. They have had every opportunity to fold, and they haven't, which is good to see.
All right, guys, smash that like button, subscribe if you're new. I'll be back tomorrow to preview the Dolphins and Browns. And then we'll be live on Sunday for the Browns and the Dolphins, live reaction to the game. And then that's a 4:05. And then we'll be live for the post-game show after. Smash that like button. Over almost 400 of you in the room. Appreciate all y'all for coming through. Have a good rest of your Boxing Day, and we'll see you on the next one. Until then, fins up all day, every day, and have a fantastic evening, everyone.